I'm Rejoice Ojiaku, and this is SEO in 2024 Additional Insights.
Rejoice, what's your additional insight for SEO in 2024?
My additional insight for SEO in 2024 is that we need to start expanding our content ideation and keyword research well beyond Google. I'm doing this by tapping into SEO, social media, for example. So that would be my additional insights. I think it's important that, we find where our users begin their search. And a lot of times it does start on social platforms. And once we sort of tap into that, we're able to expand our content ideation process, our keyword research process beyond this. And then we are able to sort of find our users, find topics exactly where they begin.
Got you. Okay. So we're not talking about social media SEO. We're talking about utilizing social media to discover new content opportunities to publish that on our website.
Absolutely. And doing so sort of helps repurpose content or make that process easier because we're actually tapping into more updated real data when it comes to content ideation, when it comes to keyword research. So I think moving away from beginning our keyword research from Google search engine and actually starting it from social media, that way we can actually expand our strategy to kind of include different topics that are trending that users are actually talking about.
So how are people actively beginning their searches on social media now? I mean, is it just the youngsters that are doing that? Is it everyone that are doing that? And how are they going about doing that?
I think nowadays, everyone is sort of starting their searches on social media. So for example, let's say people want to find out, you visit a new city, you visit a new place, or you want to go on a holiday, for example, and you just want to know what you can do in that new place and that new site. Before, people probably Google top things to do in, Greece, for example. But now I think the most common platform people now start with is TikTok. So people will now search, things to do in Greece. And because now you have actual user-generated content there, and you can see other keywords that are sort of flowing, giving you or returning you the actual responses. I think everyone now just starts the search from social platforms, and then you sort of start expanding deeper and by going into Google to continue your search. But originally, I think everyone now kicks it off on social media platform. I know I do. I know my sister does. My friends do as well, and other experts I've spoken to. So I think that's just another thing in 2024.
So is the manner that people conduct that initial search on a platform like TikTok quite different to Google? And also a secondary question to that, as an SEO, as a researcher, as a market researcher, how do you determine what people are actually searching on social media?
So it's on TikTok, for example, it kind of acts the same way as you would on Google in terms of when it serves you the results. So when I go in and start typing on the search function within TikTok, I'm still presented with suggested searches that other people may have, searched for. And sometimes they do have either additional key terms. So for example, if I want to type things to do, it might give me within the suggested searches, maybe popular locations that people have searched on TikTok, be it London, be it New York or America. And then once you keep on typing, you have more suggested, searches such as, things to do in London during the summer, during the winter. Now you're adding more modules or modifiers into that search. I think that process is really, really effective because one, I can now understand from a keyword perspective where my searches are, and it makes that clustering a bit easier because what TikTok does, for example, is just add extra caveats to each search so you can actually see the breadth of those searches. And then you even have now the TikTok creator analytics platform where it tells you the most trending searches, the most popular searches, then everyone has access to sort of looking into that data. So I think from an SEO perspective, as SEO experts, that sort of platform makes keyword research, content ideation, that process just a bit easier because you are able to tap into what users are searching in real time at the moment, what's currently trending, and how does that apply to your business.
And can you quite easily extract the data from TikTok into your preferred analysis platform?
I'm not too sure if you can export it. I do think within the, analytics platform, you can possibly look at the breadth of keyword research. So it wouldn't act the same way as other tools like we know, like the Hrefs or the Majestic, where you can export the full data of whatever you sort of want to find. But I do think it's a great starting point to understand the search queries, to understand the topics or trending topics. Is a great platform to also look at what type of content works well with that keyword. So are people doing more creative videos? Are they doing more long videos, short form videos? Are they doing more voiceovers? Are we seeing more point of view videos or UGC content being created? So I think it gives us a bit more insight into actual everyday users, whereas not necessarily businesses. Because I do feel with normal keyword research, we are able to see the intent in terms of what that software is telling us. But on TikTok or social media, we know the intent because we can see the type of content being served back once we do those searches.
Can we get keyword volume as well?
Keyword volume is not necessarily. So I think how it works on social platform is the main searches will appear at the top. It's just they come up first. They will be the ones that are more trending. But on TikTok analytics platform, it does tell you what's trending, what's not. And it does place it in order. And I think we can use that from SEO is gather all those searches and look at it from a search functionality on Google. So we can input these key terms, for example, and use it as a caveat or use it to complement our traditional strategy. So how I would do it and how I've done it is go through TikTok, social media, social listening, look at the hashtags, look at trending topics, and then formulate, maybe type it into a software tool that can give me more overarching topics. So for example, a magic tool where I can input one key term and I get a whole phrase of different related terms that are very similar. So that's how you can use both to sort of complement your keyword research instead of, sitting there thinking, okay, what other key terms is applicable? What other, keywords do people search for? Social media gives us that. All we have to do is look at the information we're getting and then see how that translates from an organic perspective on other platforms that we're using for keyword research.
Got you. So it's more of a brainstorming buddy. You're using it as an opportunity to make sure that you've got the most relevant, the most up-to-date keywords, and also perhaps targeting opportunities that you might have missed, angles that you might have missed based upon conventional keyword research.
Yeah, absolutely. It's literally, like you just said, is a buddy. It complements how we traditionally look at keyword research. And I think the extra step, from keyword research, it can be quite difficult to understand what content suits this type of key phrase. But we can test that out by seeing what we've seen on social platforms, what kind of content does come up. Because, I think people always feel like, oh, this should turn into a blog, but a blog is not the only content form that we can serve to users. Social media shows us that what's performing really, really well to get to the point. And with these videos, they satisfy user intent or satisfy the user query much faster because it's more direct.
That's a great point. So you can actually determine the content style that will be most appropriate for that particular query and then use that to serve that content style on your blog, perhaps as a video or as a conventional blog post, and then hopefully get better click-through rate and user retention because of that. Yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely.
So this keyword research buddy analogy that I was thinking of with regards to TikTok actually reminded me of what a lot of people say about AI as well. So a lot of people use ChatGPT, for instance, as a research buddy. Can AI tools also have access to this TikTok data, this TikTok information, or is it necessary to jump in there as an individual and do the work yourself?
So yes, in the way that, AI can't actually access your TikTok account. I don't know if there's an API for that as of yet, but I do think there is a way for you to utilize AI, social media and SEO and sort of create a powerhouse for you. So ideally the process will start from you're looking to sort of build on your keyword research because you want to sort of generate content ideation from that. I would start from social media. I would go and sort of look at the trending topics around your niche, see what comes up. utilize Google, utilize Instagram, utilize X, formerly known as Twitter, and sort of consider, okay, these are what users are talking about in relation to what I want to sort of do. Take what you're seeing, take those topics that you're seeing, put it into a keyword research tool that you use, and that will sort of, at least pull up more keywords that might be related. You can do that on Google Keyword Planner, SEMrush, and all of those things. Once you've not built those keyword research because of the topics you found on social media, what I would do then is I would go into AI and I will cluster, and I ask AI, ChatGPT, to cluster these keywords into overarching topics, and then ask it to maybe create subtopics from that. And then you can go a step further and ask AI to help you think about the best content format for this key term. Because with that, the clustering, also include the intent, just so it understands from that what kind of content we're looking for. Once it now serves you the type of content you want to sort of see, go and test that. Test that to see if that content does come up, that keyword does produce that sort of content on search engines and on social platforms. See if there's a variation, because then what you're doing is you're creating shareable content that you can repurpose, not content that can only sit on the site, but content that we can actually utilize, especially topics we can utilize to create blogs, to create infographics, to create videos, and so on. So that's a good strategy to sort of utilize all of those three to make sure that they work cohesively and they're actually producing, helping you produce the results that you want to see.
Brilliant. And I loved your advice on how to use AI effectively, because essentially what you're saying is AI is only as good as the data that you feed it to begin with. So make sure that you do all your research to begin with. You get that data in from TikTok and other sources, and then you can say to AI, okay, do something with this, categorize it, make sense of it. But if you're asking it to reach out and you're not sure where it's getting the data from, it's not necessarily the right information it's producing for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what AI can't possibly see is what's coming up on TikTok when you actually search it. It can't actually know the content that's actually coming up on these social platforms. So it's really, really good to allow it to generate a cluster of these terms, generate some ideas in terms of content format, and then testing that to see if it's true. So I think that's the best way to sort of utilize it. And with AI, everything's about feeding it data. Feed it as much data, as much information as needed. Even when you're writing your prompts, give it as much context as it's needed in order to sort of get the best results out of that.
Now, in terms of users searching online, you also use the phrase start with social media. And in terms of user journeys, do you find that users are starting with social media and then moving on to Google, or are a lot of users actually just using social media for the whole purchase decision-making process?
Recently, people have used it for the whole journey of social media, because social media serves me awareness content. It serves me consideration content, especially when I'm just trying to decide between two options. And now on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, you can now buy, because they have shops there. Brands do have their shops there, and it's linked nicely to your payment platform. So social media has beautifully allowed users not to come off the platform. Everything you can do on there. So it's really, really key to sort of then understand, if you're an e-commerce brand, a business owner, and you have a shop on social media and as well as your actual site, how are you utilizing that to drive sales, to drive traffic, to drive conversions all the way through? So if I'm looking to sort of buy a particular product, I will first go on social media to sort of maybe go on the brand social media, see what they say about the product. I would then go and find other people's reviews, because now social platforms allows us to read reviews from people testing the products, using the products, and so on. And what's beautiful about that is in those reviews, especially on TikTok, they link the products. So whilst they're talking, I could easily click it. If I'm happy with that, purchase it while still watching that video. That is a seamless journey as a user. And so I think, business owners have to figure out the best way in order to drive sales on social media and drive sales on your actual website. And you can do that by obviously adding links, obviously, including different optimization social platforms. Put your website on your bio, making sure that you're always doing CTAs, telling users, if you like this product, click the link below, or whatever the case may be, and that takes them to the website. So understanding that sometimes the user journey starts and ends on social platforms is such a great insight for SEO, because now we have to figure out, okay, if that's the case, how do we then make sure that the same is true for the website? What is happening on social media? What kind of content are people actually tapping into that's getting the conversions? And how can we do that on our website to make sure we're driving people to the purchase page or the checkout page, for example?
Lots of changes happening at the moment. It depends what industry you're in terms of what you want your user to do as well. I notice a lot of platforms, including Google, seem to be getting bricks together and building walls and building a walled garden around what they're trying to do, just keeping the users in their place. But we'll see. Stay tuned. You have shared what SEO should be doing in 2024. So now let's talk about what SEO shouldn't be doing. So what's something that's seductive in terms of time, but ultimately counterproductive? What's something that SEO shouldn't be doing in 2024?
I think that it's counterproductive, and this is just relating to the tip I just gave, or what we've just spoken about. I think it's counterproductive to solely rely on traditional search engine data, because even Google and other search engines are now understanding that the power of social platforms, because now even in the SERPs, we're seeing, we have the carousels. Now we're actually seeing videos. We're seeing TikTok videos coming up within those carousels. So we need to move away from solely relying on traditional search engine and just think differently, because the industry is changing. We are being introduced to new tools, new softwares, new ideas. So we have to adapt to those. And I think it's, especially when we want to look at content ideation and keyword discovery, if we stick to the traditional way, we are overlooking dynamic content opportunities that may arise and, most likely arise from social media or other platforms. And once we shift our focus to include insights from these platforms, SEO experts can tap into the wealth of real-time data, and that way, that real-time data reflects the user interest and will reflect the real-time conversations that's happening, and thereby we can now create more relevant, engaging content, which essentially is what Google wants us to sort of do, especially with the March 2024 core updates about that high-quality content. And we're doing this because we're not relying solely on traditional search engine data that, we are so used to.
Brilliantly said. Rejoice Ojiaku is SEO manager at Nelson Bostock Unlimited, and you can find her over at nelsonbostock.com. Rejoice, thanks so much for adding your additional insight to SEO in 2024.
Thank you for having me.
I've been your host, David Bain. You've been listening to an episode of SEO in 2024 Additional Insights, a Majestic series that complements the original SEO in 2024 podcast, video series and book. Find out more at SEOin2024.com.